Good day, folks. Geopolitics continues apace. This third in the series. I thought I'd continue with that while domestic politics takes a dirty turn. Obviously, it's going to be all about religion. BJP hasn't really found the winning trick in UP besides religion. Caste, it seems to have lost the plot for the time being. With Shivpal Yadav now joining up with Akhilesh, worst times to come for good old Yogi and his band of thugs. Here we go. The more important part is, let's talk about geopolitics. China continues to be the focus. One of our biggest, I guess, assets around besides Japan and the Quad is Taiwan. And here's interesting. Government unveils 76,000 crore plan to boost semiconductor manufacturing. And you really can't get a leg up on that without having tied up with Taiwan. And here we go. India, Taiwan start negotiations on free trade agreement. And a lot of it has to do with TSMC. Important. And this really plays well into our relationship and will act as a solid ballast against China. Then Taiwan role, Lithuania closes embassy in China. No change, this is important, but no change in US policy on Taiwan since Biden. There was a lot of confusion being created on the Hill and otherwise globally to suggest that the United States was changing its stance. No. Taiwan Air Force scrambled to Sea of China jets as she meets top generals. China threat, Taiwan deploys advanced F-16 fighter aircraft. Pentagon chief, China operation near Taiwan resembles rehearsals. China downgrades its ties with Lithuania over Taiwan, and one of the few countries that showed a finger, and rest of Europe is watching. Taiwan citizens being deported to mainland under China pressure. Now this is kind of strange coming out of the United States. Taiwan, China row. Australia sends troops to quell riots in Solomon Islands. This is what the Chinese do, and their triads, right? US invites Taiwan to summit, China fumes. And they will. US destroyer transits Taiwan Strait, leaving China fuming. Choose a side, China tells Taiwan firms. When India comes into play as far as chip semiconductors goes, the FTA happens. Hey, new ball game in town, and we are the new bride in town, folks. Everybody wants us. We are having a deliberating domestic political season, which can really ruin our foreign policy opportunities, folks. Cheers. So, readout from 2017 to show you that the more the things change, the more they remain the same as far as China is concerned. It's by Nayan Chanda, Enter the Dragon. With the coronation of Xi at China's 19th Party Congress, a Leviathan is born. That's exactly what's happened. A monster. Armed with the bulging foreign reserves and growing list of international friends and supporters, China has pushed to extend to control over influential international organizations from Interpol to internet governance. China has interfered with increasing brazenness in other countries' internal affairs, drawing red lines to ensure that their internal policies conform to China's interests. The rise of China to unprecedented global power influence, though, has not resulted in greater freedom or openness for its citizens. In fact, under Xi, China has emerged as one of the most repressive states with unprecedented control over lives of its citizens. All this insecurity is puzzling. What is the leader of a prosperous and powerful China so afraid of? Maybe Xi knows something about the brittleness of the mighty system than outsiders do not. Meanwhile, the world had better get ready to deal with a mighty dragon. But the good thing that's happened after this 2017 is that the screws are twisting against them, right? And it's after what happened in Solomon Islands, right? Where the Australians had to send in the police to quell the unrest because of what the government did against Taiwan. You have this. Indo-Pacific expand the idea of security by Darshana M. Barua rightly said, but it is to highlight the perspective and notion of small island nations who are at the center of traditional security concerns and competition. If bigger powers of the Indo-Pacific want to have an impact and engage with smaller island nations and littorals in the regions, government across the theater will have to start listening and find creative ways in addressing both sets of security challenges with the resources available. This is important because China can't do that. The West is more prepared. And here you have China in Sea, India at Dock by Arun Prakash. He says China's aspiration to become a maritime great power is being driven by a clear-eyed vision that goes well beyond the Belt and Road Initiative and its seaward competent, the Maritime Silk Road. What he says is, Call for enhancing the Navy's share of the defense budget from a paltry 12% to at least 18-20% are certainly justified, but of equal importance is the formulation of a national strategy for maritime security that goes well beyond building a capable fighting navy and encompasses the upgradation of the full gamut of India's maritime capabilities, including shipbuilding. This is the important part. Merchant shipping, more important, ports, seabed exploration and fisheries. As it stands, India's failure to bring sharp focus on maritime capacity building represents not only an economic missed opportunity, but also a yawning gap in maritime security. Fisheries, folks, shipbuilding, important. And what does this C. Raja Mohan write? A base away from home. A discovery of its surreptitious military base shows China is trying to assert its primacy in Asia and its waters while trying to push US out, and the US is worried now too. In the 21st century, like Beijing, the security establishment began to note India's growing strategic interests beyond borders. As the inevitability of China's naval power projection into the Indian Ocean became clear, Delhi began to recognize the need for military access to strategic locations in the Indo-Pacific. Delhi's efforts to secure access involved negotiating arrangements with friendly states in the Indian Ocean, as well as developing deeper strategic partnership with the US and its regional allies. But Delhi is a long way from matching the speed and intensity of Chinese military diplomacy in its near and extended neighborhood. What is important here, folks, is this. Andaman and Nicobar Island is key to the Act East policy. This is written by Lieutenant General Ajay Singh. More important, like I said, you've covered the gap, folks. Cover the gap. Make Andaman and Nicobar Islands the hub, the center, the headquarters of the Quad, folks. Anybody who's listening, take a deep thought about this. Forget about this non-alignment stuff. Make this a base for the Quad. The kind of investment that you'll get, the kind of coverage that you'll get, the defense capabilities you'll get are unparalleled, folks. Unparalleled. Cheers. Okay, so anybody who had any doubt about the United States and its intentions in Southeast Asia, the doubt essentially created by Obama's ineffective foreign policy as far as China is concerned. Actually, most of his foreign policies were fairly ineffective and without any substance, because he thought China could be G2. I mean, he forgot about he didn't read China at all, right? So what we have is, here is Navy targets to become 170 warship force in 10 years. Committee on Defense recommends 3 aircraft carriers for Navy. And here what important thing I'd like to point out. We need the 3rd aircraft carrier. But since we are running short of funds, and as I said in the previous thing by the Naval Chief Arun Prakash, that we really need a higher budget. But in the interim, how about leasing a aircraft carrier from the United States? Just think about it. Think about it. It's a game changer, just like the nuclear agreement, right? Blinken vows US military might in Indo-Pacific, like I said. High on China, Blinken vows more US military might in Indo-Pacific. Modi, on the other hand, seeing the threat of China, Biden lay emphasis on stable global supply chains. Then we have US eyes January rollout of first projects to counter China's BRI, says officials. And here's where India is playing a great role to bridge the gap in Indonesia, besides the defense agreement I spoke to you about yesterday. First batch of COVAX set to reach Indonesia this week. And then we have this. Russia, India and China may hold summit soon, says Putin. Putin is out flying a kite. And I think India really should be careful about entering the room with Xi, because Xi really never lives up to any of his words. Actually, never. It's a pointless exercise, almost. Because all you're doing is giving this rogue gallery of Putin and Xi a platform to show the world that you got another democracy, India, on that same table. It makes no sense to me. Absolutely not. It's time we sent a message to the dragon that where it belongs is where it belongs. An outcast. So there's a small note the other day which says Goyal, India, US bearing trade differences. And it's about time, because this is what Pranab Dhal Samta writes. Enough of FTA dragging. He says, what does he say? He says, today the new generation FTAs will have to deal with digital technologies, e-commerce, intellectual properties, and environmental sustainability, labor, gender, and such issues. Also, it's true that these subjects accrue way more relevance while dealing with the West, but for India to position itself as a natural destination for Western value chains, it has to consider refashioning its political approach on certain issues that inform new generation FTAs. He's right. Last month, after a long hiatus, the US, with a total trade of 11.46 billion with India, overtook China at 10.48 billion. Most significantly, in China's case, the bulk of trade was imports by India, amounting to about 8.76 billion, while the distribution was more even-handed with the United States. In fact, India's exports were about 7.23 billion, with imports at 4.2 billion. So a surplus. No reason to shun the Americans. Clearly, the trade with the US conveys better strategic and economic stability. What is working for India is a favorable global political climate that is willing to invest in a stronger Indian economic profile. When it comes to the economic conversation, India has always had its issues with the West. In fact, post-reform India found it easier to look east, but now it must reopen the conversation with the West on the strength of its democratic politics. There is no reason for India to duck democracy issues. World politics have also transitioned into accepting a broader democratic frame, largely because of the security threat non-democratic entities pose today. Important lesson. In many ways, those issues that were once seen as insurmountable non-tariff barriers may well be opportunities to leapfrog into a new growth model. Any which way, these are conversations India must have and conclude, because progress here would also distinguish it from China as a politically acceptable, reliable economic partner. Hear this, folks. Hear this, folks. And especially when you see this, US passes $1 trillion infra upgrade bill, monumental step forward. Biden hails passage of infra bill, and you see what Apple is. You see what profitability of American companies. A bellwether is Apple. India's profit rises 32% as sales volume surge. India-US meet will set agenda for FTA. India-US move to narrow trust deficit on trade front. The Bush US-India trade needs deeper business ties are crucial to post-COVID economic recovery, says Nisha Biswal. India-US trade issues to be resolved within a year, faster the better. Collaboration, not tug-of-war, key to trade ties. This is what the Secretary of the Joe Biden administration will seek to build a new collaborative approach on trade with India that will respect each other's sensitive and political requirements instead of locking horns. This is what US Trade Representative Catherine Tai said when she visited India. When India and US talk trade, it says the good news is there is intent to integrate both economies, but a bilateral deal is distant. And this is the other part. India-US signed deal for torpedoes. So that continues apace, folks. Time to bell the scat of the FTA as per Mr. Dull. Cheers. So this flotilla actions against the China continues. US slaps sanctions against China over abuse of Uyghurs. Lithuania to seek EU leaders help against China. I hope that the Germans and the French do show up, because they are acting like pussies a little bit, unfortunately. Though Macron is headed towards Taiwan, but they obviously feel their Euro signs, see the Euro signs in their eyes are bigger than anything else. India and US cement bilateral ties, share regional concerns, absolutely. This is the important part. Pressing defense plus control plus alt in the 2+2. He says, however, there's good news on the India-US defense front. A new chapter is set to open on India as a major defense partner. Officials tell me the two sides are ready to sign a new SSA Space Situational Awareness Agreement between the US Space Command and the ISRO. Beyond SSA, there's also progress in cyber cooperation. India also wants to be part of the secretive cyber offensive and defensive exercise code. We should get that invite. India and the US have also agreed for an Indian liaison officer of the rank of colonel or lieutenant colonel to be placed at the US Special Operation Command in Florida. The officer is expected to arrive within 2 months. The strongest leg of the relationship remains defense cooperation, while trade and economic issues continue to be the weakest link, and that now needs to be strengthened. And this is what Yashwant Raj, right? Is an FTA with the US in the works. He says India wants to extricate trade talks with United States from the current morasses of endless recrimination and negotiations. It has been testing the waters recently for a free trade agreement as part of an expanded trade relationship. Although a formal offer has not been made yet, senior Indian officials have pitched the idea in closed-door meetings. Washington DC is unlikely to jump at it because it is being said there is little appetite for trade deal in either the Joe Biden administration or US Congress at this moment. And India-US FTA may or may not face the same fate, but there is only one way to find out by going for it. This is when we talk about the bilateral investment agreement. But it's more of the fault lies with India. Now we continue to blame the United States because the winds and the settings have changed. Therefore, and the appetite has changed there. But they've been offering and hoping for this for a long, long time. We just waited far too long. IMF applauds India's net zero 2070 pledge. The biggest play for India is going to be net zero and the investments that can come in on the back of that, folks. Jai Hind.